It's time. It's time. It's time. Today is December the 26th, 2025, and it is 8:02 a.m. The golden lessons from the autobiography of Chris Eubank. The golden lessons from the autobiography of Chris Eubank. The golden lessons from the autobiography of Chris Eubank, former professional boxing, WBO, middleweight, and super middleweight champion, known as simply the best, known as one of the best British boxers of all time, known as one of the greatest technical boxers of all time, Christopher Livingston Eubanks. Now, the first lesson is one of his quotes or quote from one of the earlier chapters about his mother. I'm going to give a spoiler. His mother left the family when he was relatively young. And the quote that he mentioned was adapt and accept. Okay. Actually, I had that backwards. Accept and adapt. I'm still waking up. But you know, we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it. Accept and adapt, which means you have to take on the responsibility of what your situation is and make the changes and the necessary adjustments to make your situation better. You have to acknowledge that this is what the situation is, and you must maneuver, adjust, and do what you need to do to make that situation better. Don't complain. Don't ask too many questions. Find out what you need to find out, or don't find out what you don't need to find out, and do what you need to do to make the best out of your situation where you are. So that's the first thing I learned, was to accept and adapt. The second lesson I learned from the autobiography of Chris Eubank was the title of the first video that I did on Chris Eubank. Check out that video. And the name of that video was the second lesson that I learned from the autobiography of Chris Eubank, which is to be your own man. You don't need the validation. You don't need the acceptance. You don't need permission. Or do you need the green light to do anything? Chris Eubank as a young man, all the way up to now, pretty much did not live for the validation or the acceptance of people outside of his brothers. And there is even a time where he no longer wanted the acceptance of his brothers, but he stresses the importance that he was his own man, okay? And he could stand on his own 2 feet, okay? A lot of people didn't think that he could defeat a prime Nigel Benn, who was another great British boxer and great professional fighter. I think out of the two, Nigel Benn was able to cross over, okay? And a lot of people didn't think that he would beat Nigel Benn, but he defeated Nigel Benn. A lot of people didn't think he could beat Michael Watson the first time and even the second time, okay? But he believed that he was his own man. And this is why he was able to portray the villain for most of his boxing career. The third lesson I learned from the autobiography of Chris Eubank was to have your own fashion sense. Now, if you was to see a picture of Chris Eubank as a younger man, a guy that looks African American who really was Jamaican, dressed in an English gentleman style, you would never thought he was a boxer. But a lot of people question his fashion sense now, and a lot of people question his fashion sense then. But he wore the English gentleman look with confidence, with assertiveness, okay? Some things, my personal opinion, looked nice and some things different. But he dressed for himself. He didn't dress for other people. And one of the things that I learned, and this wasn't from the book, this was from one of his interviews. You don't understand my fashion. And that stuck with me. You got to dress for you. You got to have your style. Okay? Don't try to dress like everybody else. Don't try to keep up with the trends. Now, the good thing about trends is they expose you to different fashion. And that's one of the things that I do. If I see something I like that everybody else is wearing, I'm going to get something different and I'm going to add it to my wardrobe. I'm going to add it to my fashion. I'm going to wear it my way and it stays in my wardrobe. If that trend was to pass, which it probably will, I'm still going to wear it. I still wear cargo shorts. Okay? But have your own fashion sense because your fashion represents you. If you want to wear light colors, wear light colors. If you want to wear dark colors, wear dark colors. If you want to follow trends, you can do that too. but have your own fashion sense. The only fashion that matters is your fashion, because appearance is everything. Make sure you're always looking immaculate from the head to the toe. Always looking immaculate. Okay? Make sure you're fresh. Make sure you clean. Make sure you're neat. Make sure that you're polished, polished, polished. As you can see right now, I have the classic 5-button military sweater. And I have a contrasting brownish shirt to blend in with the solid brown. Okay? So have your own fashion. Have your own fashion. Have your own fashion, because at the end of the day, they don't need to understand your fashion because it's your fashion. You dress for you. The third thing I learned from the autobiography of Chris Eubank was to be assertive. Be assertive. Believe in yourself. Respectfully. Don't be arrogant. Don't be cocky. But believe in yourself. And see, Chris Eubank, in the beginning of his professional career, he was humble. It wasn't until he kept getting overlooked. Okay? It wasn't until he beat the guy Logan that he was able to get a shot from Nigel Benn. And during a press conference with Nigel Benn, he was very respectful while still playing psychological warfare with Nigel Benn. Because Nigel Benn was the aggressive one. Chris Eubank was the more gentlemanly, like more calm, more poised. Okay? But Chris Eubank believed in himself. He believed that he could be world champion. And it took him 7 years from when he first started to become world champion. And as you can see in the thumbnail, this is the very pose, this is the very picture right after he knocked out Nigel Benn in his prime to become the WBO champion after working for 7 years to get to this point. You see how chiseled he is. You see that roar, that scream that he let out. And he talks about this in his autobiography. That picture represents all the work, all the sacrifices to win that title. And from there, him being a champion opened doors for him financially and in boxing. Okay? So be assertive, be assertive, be assertive. Okay? The next lesson from the autobiography of Chris Eubank is to stand on your resolve. Stand on your integrity. Stand on what you believe is right. Okay, because the only moral compass that matters is your moral compass. And see, I can see why there's a lot of people don't even know who Chris Eubank is. He only had one title, which was the WBO title, both in the super middleweight and middleweight division. Okay? He had a Skyline deal, okay, for a good amount of money, 10 mil for 8 fights. That was a good deal for that particular time. But Chris Eubank was a man of integrity. He was a man of resolve, and he was outspoken. His infamous quote, boxing is a mug's game. And that kind of blackballed him in a way to a lot of opportunities that he could have had. But he didn't care. He stood on what he believed. He believed that the boxers should be treated a certain way. He believed that the promoters, as Mike Tyson would say, were leeches, and it was true. He was willing to stand, and he won at the end because he retired at 31 years old, going on 32. 45 wins, 5 losses, 2 draws. Okay? So he won in the end by standing on his resolve. Okay? Nigel Benn got more opportunities than him. Nigel Benn played the game more than him. Played the game. I'm not going to say played it more than him, but he played the game. He kept his mouth shut, and he was able to maneuver and have more opportunities than Chris Eubank. But Chris Eubank stood on principle. He was outspoken. He wasn't able to speak his mind, and he's still like that. He's still like that. Okay, so this particular lesson is pretty much stand on your resolve. Stand on your resolve, stand on your resolve. Okay? The next lesson that I learned from the autobiography of Chris Eubank was the three things that keep you happy in life that he said in his book. And it's integrity, it's reason, and it's forgiveness. And I did a short on these 3 things. Do what's right according to your moral compass. Have your why. And forgive yourself and forgive other people for the things that they've done to you that you know that was wrong. Don't hold bitterness, don't hold resentment against people. Forgive and move on. That don't mean y'all have to be best friends. That don't mean y'all have to be around each other. That don't mean y'all have to communicate. Okay? You forgive and you move on. If you have to deal with this person in a certain capacity, be respectful, be polite, because unforgiveness, it eats you up. And see, when you forgive for you. You forgive for you so you could be healthy, so you could move on. Okay? That was the next lesson. And if I had to pick one more lesson from the autobiography of Chris Eubank, and this lesson is in reference to the fight that changed his life. And this was the Watson Eubank 2 fight for the super middleweight title. Chris Eubank was getting beat bad by the force, Michael Watson, to the point where he had to take a knee. He got up and fought on anyway. He knew that it was a fight that he couldn't beat. But he got up after getting knocked down, having to take a knee, because it was the right thing to do. He got up because he was a man. And he got up because he was on kill time. And he referenced kill time as that spark to win. And the lesson is, you don't judge a man by how he win, but you judge a man by how he deal with defeat. You judge a man how he handle adversity. Okay? He was able to get up and beat Michael Watson. But he felt, even though he won the fight, he lost because he injured Michael Watson. He was responsible for injuring Michael Watson. Michael Watson was never able to fight again. That humbled him. Okay? And if I had to give a bonus, the bonus would be embrace the villain arc. Embrace the villain arc. Embrace the villain arc. Don't be afraid to be the villain. Don't be afraid to be the guy that nobody likes. Somebody gotta be the villain. And Chris Eubank was saying in his book that when he would walk to the ring, when he would strut to the ring, he would absorb all the venom, all the hatred, all the dislike, and he would transmute that energy into positive energy. In between rounds, he would stand in the middle of the ring and pose for the fans, embracing the villain, assertive, confident, standing on a resolve. Box office, box office, box office. So I hope you learned and enjoyed my golden lessons from the autobiography of Chris Eubank. I give it 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Enjoy your day, enjoy your week, and always remember, life is a game of chess and every move counts. Know the board, know the pieces, win the game.